So, unless you live under a rock, you cannot help but hear about them. Weight loss drugs. About 15.5 million people, or 6% of all adults in the United States, are taking an injectable weight loss drug. They're also called GLP 1s. Now, from memes about shrinking celebrities to warnings about side effects and concerns about how to get a prescription and how to pay for it, there's a lot of misinformation out there. They were originally used to treat people who are diabetic or pre-diabetic. Soon, it was discovered they are also powerful drugs in treating obesity. Now, today we're going to speak with a woman who's having success with one of these drugs and a family nurse practitioner who prescribes it. We're going to break down the myths, the misinformation, and shed light on what is still a taboo subject for many people despite the popularity. So my first guest today is Cary Heise. Cary and I met when I did a story on the nonprofit she ran for many years here in Raleigh, a nonprofit that helps women in vulnerable circumstances by teaching them a trade and giving them a job with the goal of helping them transition back into the community. She's now living her best life as an empty nester. She comes to us today from South Carolina. She moved back to her hometown, and they are working on their next chapter. Cary, thank you for coming and welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Amanda.
Absolutely. So, everybody's story when it comes to using these drugs begins with the struggle, right? The struggle that you were experiencing with your health, with your weight, and talk about that. Talk about how long that went on and what are some of the things that you were trying to do to deal with
Sure.
it.
So I wouldn't have considered myself obese. I wasn't extremely overweight, but I am 50 years old. And over the last 2 or 3 years, which may or may not have been COVID related habits or my love for work over working out, I was gaining weight and not having that easy success of getting it off. So I went to my doctor. I had heard friends talking about managing their cortisol levels. I, of course, saw celebrities online talking about hormone replacement therapy. And I was like, wait a minute, before I spend $1 million on supplements to who knows who online, I'm going to go talk to my doctor. So I went with the intention of talking about hormone replacement. My menopause complaints were hot flashes, which were not that bad, where I didn't want medication for them, but it was the weight, and it was the weight around my belly, which of course, is the worst kind of weight for your heart. And she said, my doctor said, we could do the hormone replacement, but you're probably only going to lose a couple of pounds. Have you looked into GLP ones? And no, I had not at all. I would say that from a woman who had decades of body shame for herself, especially like a particular incident post pregnancy weight with a close person to me. I went through a season of binging and purging and all of that. So I know the heaviness of shame when it comes to weight and body image. So when she brought this up to me, I was floored. I couldn't even believe she had opened this idea even up to me. So I went to my husband. We talked about it. We did some of our own research, of course. And my husband was so supportive. He said, Cary, you deserve some easy in your life. We were launching two young adults into college. I was in the middle of my passion project, which was having a revenue of like $1 million a year. And that was a lot of pressure. And he said, let's do it. Let's have you try it. And my two biggest concerns about starting and this weight loss, I ended up being on Wegovy, by the way, was, gosh, I don't want to be nauseous and I don't want to be constipated, or the other way. And I talked to my doctor about that. We stuck it through. About 2 months into the treatment, I did experience some nausea for a couple of weeks, but my doctor encouraged me, just stick it through. If you can, stick it through. And I do know other women whose doctors also provide them anti-nausea meds to help that, but mine did not. Mine was manageable. And protein, eating lots of protein. I'm sure the next your doctor guest will explain that too. But I was really mindful about high fiber and using stool nurse, just being
Just
real.
kind of managing the symptoms.
Managing. And I was seeing the results. I won't talk about like my actual numbers because I think women in our brains have those weight
Sure.
numbers in their minds. But I was able to get the results of losing about a pound a week.
And how long did it take? I mean, was it immediate?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. And it she would bump me up to a different level every month or two when I was feeling comfortable and confident. So and it wasn't like, okay, when you get to the maintenance phase, you're going to lose the weight then. I was losing the weight the entire time.
Throughout.
Yes.
There's a lot of talk about, oh, it's so difficult to get a prescription.
Mm.
And then even if you get a prescription, you have to figure out how to pay for it because it's expensive and not all insurance covers it. If you're comfortable talking about that, what was the process there for you?
Well, I'm very fortunate to have health insurance, good health insurance, and insurance that would cover a GLP-1. So it was my homework to call my insurance, figure out which brand they would cover, and then also to figure out if I could find it. It's a lot easier to find now than it was at the beginning of the year when I started. And I'm very fortunate. My insurance covers, it's $25 a month for 4 injections for me. And I do have friends who are paying $500, $600 a month for the compounds. So insurance was on my side. And I did some research because, I care about women who are underserved. And there's actually 13 states in the US that cover GLP-1s with Medicaid. And North Carolina is one of them. So I think that's important for your listeners to know.
Yeah, and I think as they become more popular in terms of proving their results, I think that more insurance companies and maybe more states will consider covering them because of the preventive aspect of preventing things down the road, like cancer, like heart disease. And again, we're going to talk more about that in the second half with our medical provider. But, I think this is a physical and emotional journey, right? This isn't just about losing weight. It's about feeling healthy, feeling good about yourself. It's about self esteem. How did that change you? I mean, how did this process make you feel differently when you looked in the mirror or when you put on clothes or when you went out, in public?
I my outside did not look as powerful as I feel on the inside. So the rounder face, apple shape, that didn't feel like me. So when I looked at pictures, I'm like, where are you? Where have you gone? So that helps me out a lot. Just the ease and the comfort. I mean, I can't even tell you the last time I stepped on a scale. I mean, probably should be even a little more mindful of it than I am. But I have freedom from all of that. Um, uh, I lost my train of thought, but I'm sure I'll find it.
That's okay. Well, how does it work? So does it suppress your appetite?
Mm.
Does it make you say, I don't want this food? Or we talked a little bit off camera about alcohol. Does it just suppress you wanting things that maybe would increase your weight?
Yeah. So people talk about the food noise, how it turns off the food noise. I don't know if that was my story as much. I mean, I'm a chicken and veg girl. I love chicken and veg. I'm eating it every day. It was obviously portion controls, even of those healthy foods for me. And that residual COVID drinking in the evenings with my husband, those rituals were definitely adding up. But for me, it's just I will eat something and all of a sudden I'm full. Like there's that cue that you've had enough. And you will hear about some people kind of getting an ick on food. And that sometimes happens too.
Where
So
you just kind of like when you're pregnant, there's just certain things that don't appeal to you.
yeah, you're a little bit more specific or particular about what you wanted to eat. Oh, this is what I wanted to say though earlier is that I could be thinner. Like I'm in my healthy range, but I'm not the thinnest I've ever been. And that is not as important to me anymore. I'm in my range that my doctor and I had discussed. And there's not this like constant striving, at least for myself, to be thinner and thinner and thinner and being that pre-baby weight that I once was in my 20s. It's a lot
Because
of
that's
freedom
not
there.
super realistic either. I mean, we as women, we put so much on our appearance, and all you have to do is look at social media, right? To
Yeah.
feel bad about yourself. It's funny because I'm closing in on 60 in a couple of years, And it used to be that the influencers were young women showing how beautiful they were. Now there's influencers who are my age who are like, this is what 60 looks like. I'm like, not for me. So, I do think we get a lot of mixed messages. So it's great to hear that you've figured that out with your doctor, which is really important. And I know we talked a little bit about alcohol. This could potentially have benefits for people that struggle with alcohol as well, in terms of cutting that desire down.
I mean, I've had friends who say that they have been balancing avoiding alcoholism for their whole lives, and this has relieved them of those thoughts as well. I mean, I'm sure my husband would love for me to have more cocktails than I do, but I'm just really not in the mood for it anymore. It's refreshing.
That's really healthy. So, in terms of the side effects, you had the nausea.
Mhm.
Obviously, we talked a little bit about constipation, but is this something that subsides or is it kind of comes and goes?
No, it did. If your doctor is working with you closely, then you're going up to the next stages in an appropriate time. And like I said, if I went to her and asked for some anti-nausea meds, I'm sure there was probably some relief for me there. It just wasn't at that bad.
Is this something you have to be on for life?
Oh, that's such a great question. And for a lot of people, it's probably yes. But for me, our weight plan is that I will be on Wegovy for 2 years, reset my body at my normal healthy weight, and then wean myself off. So for me, it's not going to be long term.
And so hopefully when you wean yourself off, you have some good habits in place, right? Good
Yeah.
habits with eating, good habits with exercise. And I would just think overall, because you feel healthier, you want to continue that.
Yeah, I wish I could say that I'm doing all the exercise I'd hoped I do, but I am now in a work sabbatical, so I'm sure that that will come now that I don't have those requirements. But I want to point out that all of my labs before that were maybe starting to become a concern or getting on the higher side, all of those are in very normal ranges right now. The only concern I've always had through my whole adult life was my blood pressure, always, always, always high. But that is even in a much more normal range for me now too. So
Right. I mean, I think everything from cholesterol to triglycerides to BMI, there's huge changes that happen when people are able to get, like you said, to their healthy weight. What advice would you give other women who are considering this and have seen all the kind of, I don't want to say horror stories, but seen a lot of the misinformation and the negative stories, and they're not sure if it's a path they want to go down?
moving out of state this past month, my new doctor here is just as pro LGBT as my original doctor at home. And so if you're not getting the support from your healthcare provider, find somebody who will support you. But it seems to be like something that doctors are super excited about as well.
Yeah, and I think they're seeing the benefits in terms of, again, preventing so many things down the road by helping people with weight loss. And, there's many statistics about weight in the United States. And like you said, you were not obese. You just had some extra weight that you couldn't get off. And I think that's where a lot of people land, in that kind of middle ground.
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
Alyssa, we have to remove the stigma of this. I was surprised at how many women, when I would tell my friend groups I started Wegovy, how many women said, "Oh, I've been on it," or "My sister's been on it." I'm like, why are you all gatekeeping? Why aren't you sharing this news with other women who need that same type of support and help? So
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to do the show, because I have so many friends who have done it, and I've talked to so many women who have done it and had great success. And I thought, again, same thing. Why aren't we talking about it? So I'm really excited that you reached out to me after I put the query out for this, and that you're willing to talk about it, and in a way that I think is really helpful to people. People can relate to it. So again, thank you so much, Cary.
thank you for bringing out all these topics from all your guests recently. Well done.
Thank you. We'll be right back.